Ladies and gentlemen, in the great mythologies of the soul, there is a truth we rarely dare to speak, a truth hidden not in the pages of romance novels or whispered by moonlight, but in the shadowed corridors of the psyche. She will only love you, if you dare to break her. Now I do not speak of violence or cruelty. Do not mistake the symbol for its literal mask. This breaking is not an act of harm, but of awakening. For she, as she appears in your life, is not merely a woman. She is a symbol, a force, a living embodiment of the unconscious, the wild, the intuitive, the mysterious other that lives both within and outside of you. She is the chaos behind the veil. And to truly love her is to look into the abyss she guards and not turn away. But understand this, she will test you. She must. For she is a mirror of the unknown, and she waits to see if you are a man, a true man who can hold the mirror without shattering. To break her is to break the illusion, the stories she tells to protect herself, the defenses she erects to keep the unworthy out. She will not give you her soul simply because you desire it. You must show that you have danced with your own demons and emerged sovereign. And yes, this is Machiavellian in the truest sense, not because it is cunning or manipulative, but because it acknowledges the eternal law. Power without inner mastery is tyranny, and love without confrontation is weakness. She does not need your comfort. She needs your truth. She needs your depth. She needs you to stand unwavering as she throws fire and shadow, roses and daggers. She needs to know you will not run when her soul screams in languages you were never taught to understand. Because love, real love, does not come to those who flatter. Here it comes to those who see and still stay. You must risk breaking her mask, so her essence can emerge, and in return, she will break you too. She will pierce through the hollow parts of your ego. She will destroy the small boy who sought to possess, and in his place she will crown a man who dares to feel, to lead, to love with fire and discipline. This is not the love you see in films. It is not the soft sweetness of fantasy. It is sacred war, and only the brave survive. So I ask you, not as a preacher, but as a fellow traveler of the soul, can you stand before her without fear? Can you look into the eyes of chaos and call it home? Can you break and be broken, and still love with open hands? If you can, she will only love you more, thank you. She, in this context, is not merely an individual woman. She is a manifestation, an archetype, an eternal and repeating figure in the drama of the human psyche. To reduce her to the literal is to miss the myth that breathes beneath the surface. She is not just a lover, nor only a partner. She is a mirror, a portal, a force. She represents the unconscious in its wildest, most radiant, and most terrifying form. She is the chaos before creation. She is the whisper in your dreams, the sudden unease when logic no longer satisfies, the pull you feel toward that which you cannot control. She does not live by reason or by rule. Her presence is tidal, cyclical, sometimes gentle, sometimes catastrophic. She is that which cannot be systemized, and for this reason she evokes both fascination and fear. In myth she appears in many guises, the siren calling the sailor to his doom, the goddess both nurturing and devouring, the queen who demands proof of worth before she will give herself, the dark seductress and the radiant mother, the stormbringer and the muse. These are not separate figures. They are aspects of the same vast field of energy. And they are not merely stories from ancient cultures. They live within the psyche of every human being, waiting to be seen, engaged, and, if one is brave enough, loved. To encounter her is to encounter that which lies outside the light of consciousness. She is the uncharted, the mysterious, the emotive, the intuitive. She speaks in symbols, in dreams, in moods that come like weather. She is not the world of facts, but of meaning, not the path of certainty, but the terrain of feeling, of instinct, of mystery. And yet she is not merely beautiful or romantic. Her love is not soft by default. She is not safe. To approach her is to risk being undone. She resists control because her nature is not to be contained. And herein lies the paradox. The masculine, represented not by man but by the principle of order, direction and logic, often seeks to possess, to define, to clarify. But she defies all attempts to be boxed, categorized or subdued. She does not want to be managed. She wants to be met. This meeting, however, is not one of comfort. It is a confrontation. The unconscious is not neutral. It holds not only forgotten dreams and repressed desires, but also rage, abandonment, longing, shame. To engage her is to engage all that has been buried, and much of what has never yet been known. She stands at the border of the known self and says, "If you want me, come further." But you will not leave unchanged. The tragedy of many men, and many women too, is that they seek her light but fear her depth. They fall in love with her surface, with the outer form, the face, the body, the words, but flee from the immensity that begins to open when true connection begins. Because to connect with her means touching the divine and the destructive alike. She is both wound and medicine. She holds the power to awaken, but also the power to consume. This is not cruelty on her part. This is her nature. The unconscious does not bend to the ego's desire for safety. It does not flatter, nor does it indulge illusions for long. It reveals, it tests, it demands that the mask be removed. And if it is not removed willingly, it will be shattered. Many cannot bear her gaze. Her silence terrifies them. Her insight unsettles. Her emotional intelligence cuts deeper than logic allows. When she speaks from the depth, it's not always with words, it's with presence, with energy, with a knowing that cannot be explained, only felt. And to stand in the presence of that knowing requires strength, not the strength to dominate, but the strength to remain open, because when she truly loves, it is not with half measures. She does not give herself to the cowardly, to the ones who flinch at her pain or silence her wildness. She gives herself to the one who sees her, not as an idea, not as a projection, not as an object of desire, but as a force, as mystery incarnate, as a soul. And to see her in this way, the man or the masculine within must be capable of seeing his own depths, for she will reflect back to him everything he cannot yet face in himself. His uncertainty, his hidden fears, his suppressed hunger, his longing to be held and his fear of being vulnerable. She becomes the crucible in which all these fragments are brought to the surface, not to be punished but to be integrated. If he cannot stand this reflection, he will retreat. He will call her too much, too emotional, and too complicated. He will project onto her what he cannot accept within. But if he dares to stay, if he dares to feel what arises in her presence, then something profound begins to occur. The unconscious begins to open, not as an enemy, but as an ally. She begins to reveal her secrets, not all at once, and never completely, but in layers, in pulses, in waves of depth that only the patient, the devoted, and the brave can endure. She becomes his teacher, not in the way of lessons, but in the way of transformation. Because she does not instruct, she initiates. And all true initiation begins in the dark. To love her is to step into the unknown, not to possess, not to fix, but to witness, to be changed by what you find there, to embrace not just the light she brings, but the storm she is. She is not here to make you feel safe. She is here to make you whole. The word break evokes discomfort. It carries the scent of violence, of dominance, of something torn apart. But language is layered, symbolic. When we speak of breaking her, we are not referring to the destruction of her spirit, nor the crushing of her freedom. Rather, we are pointing toward a sacred act, the confrontation of illusion, the unraveling of falsehood, the calling forth of her deepest truth from behind the fortress she has built to protect it. This breaking is not physical, and it is not cruel. It is a confrontation of the real, a confrontation of the masks we all wear to survive the world. She, like any soul shaped by pain, carries defenses, sharp, subtle, and often invisible. They may take the form of performance, charm, coldness, independence, seduction, silence, perfectionism. These are not her essence. They are strategies, shields forged in the fires of betrayal, neglect, abandonment, or simply the ache of never being seen as she truly is. These defenses are intelligent. They have kept her safe. But they are not alive. They are not love. To love her is to be willing to see beyond them, to risk her wrath, her withdrawal, her scorn, in order to touch the truth behind the veil. This is the breaking we speak of, not the destruction of her being, but the breaking open of what has been locked, hidden, or hardened. There is a terrible tenderness in this. It requires immense presence, because to challenge her mask is to challenge her very survival strategy. It will trigger everything in her that fears being exposed, everything in her that fears abandonment, everything in her that equates vulnerability with annihilation. She may test you more fiercely the closer you get to her truth, not because she is manipulative, but because on some deep level she has never believed that anyone could see her rawness and still stay. And so she will provoke you. push you, retreat from you. She will show you every reason to stop trying. Every reason to believe the mask is the person. And most do stop. Most are content with the surface. They say she's difficult, or she's too guarded, or she doesn't know what she wants. But what she wants is simple and terrifying. To be seen entirely and still loved. But seeing her entirely means you must be willing to endure what lies behind the beauty and charm, the pain, the rage, the grief, the unmet needs, the unspoken stories. You must not run from it. You must not flinch. You must not try to fix it, save it, or explain it away. Your job is not to heal her. Your job is to witness her into remembering that she was never broken to begin with. This takes courage, because her defenses will challenge your own. Her pain will mirror the parts of you that have not yet healed. Her intensity will provoke your fear of inadequacy. Her storms will crash against your need for control. Her chaos will unsettle your desire for peace. And this is the secret most do not want to hear, that in the act of breaking her mask, you risk breaking your own. You must become a man, or rather, a presence, capable of standing in that fire without attempting to extinguish it. This requires maturity. Not the maturity of age or intellect, but the maturity of emotional sovereignty. You must know who you are. You must have looked into your own shadow. You must have faced your own masks, your own longing, your own heartbreak. Otherwise, when you attempt to break hers, you will do so from ego, from control, from insecurity. And then the act becomes abuse, not awakening. But when the confrontation comes from depth, when it is rooted in love, not power, it becomes holy. It becomes the very act that allows her to step out of hiding. Not all at once, not in some dramatic unveiling, but slowly, like dawn breaking across a long night. And here we begin to see the paradox. What seems like breaking is in fact unlocking. What appears to be confrontation is actually devotion, because to love someone enough to challenge their illusion is a rare and sacred thing. It means you care more about their soul than their approval. It means you are willing to endure their temporary hatred if it means revealing their eternal truth. This is not the way of the passive lover. It is not the path of the pleaser, the chaser, the appeaser. It is the path of the initiator, the challenger, the one who holds the line and says, I see you. I see the real you, and I will not let you disappear behind this mask. And sometimes the act of breaking is silent. It is not done through argument or force. It is done through unwavering presence, through the refusal to participate in the illusion, through the patient holding of space until the false self collapses, not under pressure, but under the weight of its own emptiness. But this patience is not passive. It is active stillness. It is fierce love. It is a steady gaze that says, I will not be fooled by what protects you. I am here for what lives beneath. She may resist. She may weep. She may scream. She may attempt to seduce you back into the comfort of the mask. She may even try to destroy you for threatening her sense of control. But this is the gate. This is the test. Not only of her, but of you. Because what you are breaking is not just her illusion. It is your own. And this is where the deepest transformation begins. Where confrontation becomes communion. Where illusion gives way to intimacy. Where two souls stand naked, not in body alone, but in truth. Where love becomes a reckoning. Not of romance, but of reality. There is a reason she waits. There is a reason she conceals her essence behind veils of contradiction, mood, fire, silence, and seduction. Not because she is deceptive, but because she is testing reality. She is testing you, not in a petty or manipulative way, but in the archetypal way that the deep feminine tests the integrity of the masculine presence. She is not seeking control, she is seeking truth. The feminine is by nature shifting and fluid. It expresses through feeling, intuition, instinct, emotion. Its realm is the symbolic and the non-linear. It does not present itself in the straight lines of logic or the clarity of language. It moves in rhythms, in pulses, in emotional weather. And this movement, this wildness, is not chaos for chaos's sake. It is a call for something stable enough to meet it. Not to suppress it, not to tame it, but to hold it without collapsing. This is where the masculine enters, not as an enforcer, not as a controller, but as presence, as the sword of clarity that can cut through the fog of confusion, as the eye of stillness in the center of her storm. His role is not to overpower, but to perceive with such honesty that illusion cannot survive in his gaze. To penetrate illusion is not to strip her bare in cruelty, it is to reveal her to herself. It is to see what even she may not yet be able to see. The mask she wears, the stories she tells, the performances she unconsciously repeats in order to feel safe. These are not flaws, they are inheritances. Patterns built out of necessity, out of heartbreak, out of a lifetime of being misread, misused, or misunderstood. But they are not her truth, and if he cannot see past them, if he falls in love with the surface, with the act, with the projection, then she remains alone behind the mask. Another man who sees only what she shows, not what she is. Another interaction where her soul goes untouched, but if he dares to look deeper, to see through the dance and into the ache behind the smile, the wound behind the rage, the longing beneath the pride, then something rare occurs. The air changes. The veil thins. She begins to feel seen, not as a character in his fantasy, but as a soul trembling before him, hoping she will not be rejected when her mask inevitably falls. This kind of seeing requires immense discipline, not the discipline of control but of consciousness. The masculine must be able to remain present in the face of her storm, to hold his own center when she spins, to listen when she speaks in symbols rather than sentences, to remain open even when her fire rises and threatens to burn away all pretense. His strength is not in muscle, not in intellect, but in his capacity to remain anchored, to be awake. He must be willing to say what is true, not what is safe. He must be willing to challenge her illusions, not by force, but with clarity. Not with judgment, but with presence. When she plays small, he names it. When she manipulates, he sees it. When she withdraws, he feels it. Not to shame her, not to scold her, but to remind her that her essence cannot hide. Not from someone who truly sees. She may not always welcome this seeing. It may terrify her. It may trigger her history. She may feel invaded, even violated. Not because he is violent, but because she is unused to being witnessed without masks. But on the deepest level, she craves this. The feminine longs to be seen not as an object, but as a mystery worth beholding. Not controlled, but cherished. Not deciphered, but met. The masculine energy that can offer this, offer truth without ego, presence without possession, clarity without cruelty, becomes something rare in her world. He becomes a mirror not of what she shows, but of what she is. And in that mirror, her soul begins to awaken, not all at once and not always gracefully, but steadily, layer by layer, she begins to trust that she can put down the performance. To penetrate illusion with truth is not a romantic gesture, it is a psychological act of love. It requires the man to have faced his own illusions first, because if he has not dismantled his own false self, his attempt to see hers will be tainted, by projection, by control, by unconscious need. Only the man who has walked through his own fire, who has stood in the rubble of his own identity, can truly hold space for the feminine to do the same. The depth of his truth must match the depth of her chaos. Not in volume, but in resonance. If she is the ocean, he must be the unshakable shore, not the dam that tries to contain her, nor the sailor who drowns in her waves, but the landmass that remains still no matter how wild the tide becomes. She does not want a mirror that flatters. She does not want a caretaker who pities. She wants a man who can see through her carefully constructed defenses and say with steady voice and unwavering gaze, "I see what you're hiding, and I'm not leaving." This does not mean he accepts everything. It does not mean he abandons boundaries or becomes submissive to emotional volatility. It means he discerns. He speaks truth. He becomes the voice of reality in the midst of distortion. And this truth, when offered with love and clarity, cuts through delusion like sunlight through fog. This is the true act of masculine love, not to worship the feminine, nor to conquer it, but to reveal it. To stand in such unwavering presence that she no longer needs to pretend. To hold such clear truth that the mask becomes too heavy to wear. To love her not for her performance, but for the raw, radiant soul that rises once the illusion has been pierced. There is a silent, inherited conflict etched deep into the soul, the idea that power and love cannot coexist. That to be powerful is to forsake tenderness, and to love deeply is to surrender strength. This illusion fractures the psyche. It splits the masculine against itself, and teaches the feminine to mistrust both. One must be soft or strong, yielding or commanding, loving or respected, but not both. And in this fractured belief, both lovers are made half-formed. But power in its true sense is not domination. It is presence. It is sovereignty. It is the ability to stand in the center of one's being, unmoved by chaos, unshaken by projection, clear in vision, steady in heart. And love in its truest form is not sentimentality. It is not weakness. It is not submission. Love is the force that dissolves illusion, that calls the soul into its highest potential, that strips away everything false with the gentlest, most unforgiving light. When these two, power and love, are separated, distortion enters. Power without love becomes tyranny. Love without power becomes codependence. One wounds through control, the other through collapse. One builds empires of fear, the other sacrifices itself in silence. And so the great work is not to choose between them, but to reconcile them, to unite them, to become a vessel where power moves through love, and love is protected by power. This union is not achieved through effort alone. It is born of confrontation. The masculine must confront the part of him that seeks power out of fear, fear of being dominated, of being invisible, of being unworthy. He must ask himself, is my power real or is it compensation? Is it rooted in truth or in an unconscious refusal to feel? If he avoids this question, his presence becomes a performance. He may appear strong, but beneath the armor is a trembling boy, desperate not to be exposed. At the same time, he must confront his wounds around love. The times his vulnerability was exploited, the ways he was punished for softness, the pain of being open in a world that equated emotional depth with weakness. And unless he reclaims this lost capacity to love without fear, his power will always be tainted, because it will serve as a shield against intimacy, rather than a container for it. The feminine, too, is entangled in this split. She has been taught that love must surrender completely, that to keep peace is more noble than to speak truth. She has been taught that her anger is dangerous, that her desire is excessive, that her longing is shameful. She may wield her emotional insight as a weapon, or suppress it entirely to survive in a world that has rarely honored its wisdom. She may withhold her power, fearing it will push others away. Or she may abandon her heart entirely, becoming so fiercely independent that no one can reach her. Both carry the wound of separation. And in their meeting, the wound reveals itself again, each unconsciously acting out their learned roles. He may try to dominate her emotions with logic. She may try to manipulate his mind with feeling. He may retreat into silence when overwhelmed. She may explode into chaos when unheard. The drama unfolds again and again, not because either is cruel, but because the psyche is trying to integrate its lost halves. In this dance, love will test power, and power will test love. The feminine will not open in the presence of false strength. She can smell the lie. She will provoke it, unconsciously perhaps, to see if it collapses or stands. Her chaos, her depth, her fury. These are not punishments but initiations. They ask, can your power hold my truth without trying to control it? Can you love me without needing me to be soft all the time? Likewise, the masculine will not stay in the presence of sentimental control. He can feel the grip behind the kindness. He will pull away when love becomes a leash. He does not want to be coddled nor smothered by a need to merge. He wants to feel the fire of love, not its smoke. He wants a love that honors his strength, that does not fear his clarity or resent his direction. His test is this: can your love see my essence and not try to domesticate it? Can you open without collapsing? When power and love are brought together, something extraordinary occurs. Conflict does not disappear, but it transforms. It becomes meaningful. It becomes fertile. It becomes a site of initiation rather than destruction. Power sets the container, love fills it. Power says, I will not abandon myself in the face of your storm. Love says, I will stay open even when you are silent. Power does not shrink from intensity. Love does not recoil from truth. In the psyche, this union is a moment of profound wholeness. The masculine no longer fears the feminine's emotion. He respects it. He honors it. He holds it, not as a threat to his stability, but as a gift that makes his power real. And the feminine no longer resents the masculine's strength. She trusts it. She welcomes it. She allows it. Not because she is weak, but because she recognizes that true power makes more space for her, not less. It is not that one dominates and the other yields. It is that both evolve together. Power sharpens love. Love softens power. The two become alchemical. Each activates the other's fullest expression. The polarity does not vanish, it deepens. It becomes conscious. It becomes sacred. It becomes the foundation upon which intimacy can actually stand, not as fantasy, but as a force capable of surviving the truth of who each person really is. Devotion is not born from charm, from appearance, from seduction or surface charisma. It does not emerge from what you say or even from what you do. It arises from who you are. And more precisely, from the extent to which you have come into contact with the whole of yourself. Not the self you present to the world, not the persona crafted to win love or respect, but the raw, unedited self, the one you found buried beneath years of pretending, pleasing, hiding, and striving. The integrated self is the one who has faced their own contradictions and made peace with them. She will not give herself to a man who is at war with himself. She may be drawn to his mask, intrigued by his performance, but she will not trust him. Her body may respond, her mind may entertain the story, but her soul will not open, because the soul, unlike the surface, is discerning. It listens not to words but to vibration. It does not fall in love with projections, it seeks essence. The integrated man has made the descent. He has confronted the parts of himself that others turn away from, the insecure boy, the jealous lover, the power-hungry tyrant, the emotionally numb ghost. He has sat with his own loneliness without needing to fill it. He has walked through shame without outsourcing his guilt. He has seen the ways he uses others to avoid meeting himself. And he has stopped running. Because of this, he carries a certain gravity. Not heaviness, but depth. You can feel it when he speaks, when he enters a room, when he touches your skin. He does not need to prove anything. He is not trying to convince you of his worth. He has met his own shadow and lived to tell the story. His power is not loud. His presence is not frantic. He is simply there, with no part of himself left outside the room. This is what elicits devotion. Not control, not manipulation, not emotional acrobatics or grand declarations. Devotion is a natural response to wholeness. When a woman senses that a man is not afraid of his own depth, she begins to trust him with hers. When he can sit in his own fire, she knows he can hold hers. When he does not flinch at his own darkness, she feels safe revealing hers. But this kind of integration cannot be faked. It is not about adopting the posture of a conscious man or memorizing the right words to say. It is not performative. It is not strategic. Integration is embodied. It is felt. It lives in the nervous system, in the quality of one's gaze, in the silence between words. The integrated man does not need to announce his maturity. It announces itself through how he listens, how he moves, how he breathes in the face of conflict, how he stays present when others retreat. The fragmented man, on the other hand, is always trying to compensate. He either hides his inadequacy with bravado or disguises his fear as spiritual language. He becomes obsessed with her approval because her rejection threatens the fragile illusion of his self-worth. He may appear confident, even dominant, but beneath the surface he is terrified. Terrified of not being enough, terrified of being truly seen, terrified of loving and not being loved back. The integrated man does not need her to fill him. He does not seek her to rescue him from his own emptiness. He does not ask her to mother his wounds or validate his identity. He approaches her not as a beggar, but as a sovereign. He has something to give, not to extract. And what he gives is not a role or a performance, but himself. And in that giving he invites her to do the same. Because devotion is not submission. It is not obedience. It is not the loss of self. It is the offering of self to one who can receive it without distortion. The integrated man does not require her to diminish her power to make H. He does not envy her radiance or fear her emotional depth. He does not compete with her. He wants all of her, especially the parts others could not hold, and yet he places no demand. He does not need her devotion to confirm his worth. He is not desperate to be chosen. He is already his. He has chosen himself. He has claimed his masculine without rejecting his feminine. He has brought his heart back from exile. He has made a temple of his own body and sits quietly within it. This is what she meets when she meets him, not just a man, but a field of wholeness. A field where she can relax her vigilance, where she does not have to protect, perform, or shrink. In his presence, her nervous system begins to settle, not because he controls her, but because he does not abandon himself, and so she can stop abandoning herself too. He is not here to complete her. He is not here to fix her. He is not here to save her. He is here to meet her, soul to soul, depth to depth. He arrives not with answers but with awareness, not with force but with fullness. And because of this, she chooses to bring him her heart, not out of need, not out of habit, not out of fear, but because something in her recognizes something in him that cannot be found in those who are still fragmented. In his stillness, she finds space. In his clarity, she finds reflection. In his devotion to truth, she finds the courage to be truth herself. Her love becomes an act of freedom, not obligation. Her surrender becomes strength, not sacrifice. Her openness becomes a celebration, not a transaction. She does not have to be less to be with him. She becomes more